From the endless loud music to the preppy neon outfits to the Aqua Net bangs and mullet, the 80s culture was pretty epic. But what was probably the best thing about this era was the seemingly endless supply of blockbuster teen movies.
If you don't give your academic subjects equal time, you're out.
So in this video, we'll be taking you through the 10 classic 1980s teen movies that defined a generation. It really doesn't get any better than these.
Isn't such a big deal, is it? Is it, Eartha?
Starting off our list, we have a movie from the very beginning of the decade, Fame. Released in 1980, this movie is set in New York City, and it focuses on a group of students across all 4 years of the High School of Performing Arts.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm prepared to be dazzled by the Brandenburg Concerto.
Rather than the cliché sex and violence plot of teen movies during the 70s and 80s, this movie focuses on the hardships faced as the 4 young performers try to attain their dreams of becoming actors, dancers, and singers. Producer David Da Silva and playwright Christopher Gore faced some challenges in getting the script approved by the actual High School of Performing Arts, but that didn't stop them. They went ahead, shot the movie in other locations for over 90 days, and the result? A masterpiece that grossed over $42 million worldwide, against a production budget of $8.5 million, and won several awards and nominations, including 2 Academy Awards for Best Original Song and Best Original Score, and a Golden Globe for Best Original Song, and more recently got selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. As far as influence goes, it really doesn't get much better.
Cindy, this is what I'm talking about, responsibility. Honey, you're a senior now. Why can't you be more mature like the Miller boy?
The same can be said for the next movie on our list, Can't Buy Me Love. A bit unlike Fame, this movie titled after a Beatles song doesn't have a deep or overanalyzed storyline, but that's exactly what makes it special.
5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1.
In it, we see a young Patrick Dempsey portraying a nerdy kid who's having problems fitting into the crowd and finding love. So, what does the bright lad do? He essentially hires a cheerleader named Cindy to be his girlfriend for a month.
Well, I have $1,000. It says it will.
And show him how to be a cool dude. As you can guess, it doesn't all go according to plan, and the story unravels with a lot of simple but effective jokes.
Aren't you in the wrong section? Losers are to the left.
And if it wasn't obvious enough, the 2 likable characters end up together. Predictable, but well presented enough to show that not every film needs a twisted plot to be quality.
No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid.
Next is another movie titled after a famous song. This time, a shout out to Ben E. King, Stand By Me. Hitting the big screens in 1986 and starring Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell.
French, okay? Your garbage cans are empty and your dog's pregnant.
This timeless movie managed to seamlessly combine drama and comedy while still passing across a message. In it, a young and disparate group of teens go on the search for a local kid's dead body, only to find, let's just say, more than they were looking for. We got to see these boys go from over-inquisitive kids to teenagers coming to terms with how their respective family secrets shaped them in just 89 minutes. Stand By Me did pretty crazy numbers in the box office and got more than enough attention during the award season. It probably isn't much of a surprise that something this good came out of the same writer who wrote The Shawshank Redemption. Coming in at number 7, we have Weird Science.
Hi, dudes.
The movie Weird Science is a science fantasy teen comedy film written and directed by John Hughes and released in 1985. It stars Anthony Michael Hall and Ian Mitchell Smith, playing 2 high school dorks who just can't get any dates. To remedy this, they decide to create their own perfect woman, using their 80s Commodore. The result being a sentient and almost genie-like woman played by Kelly LeBrock. The movie turns out to be a bit rash and probably too dumb for adults, but teenagers and young folk during the 80s, there wasn't anything funnier to watch. From the annoying Chet, portrayed by Bill Oxton, to the overly sexual scenes, the movie resonated with teenage boys back then and definitely still does to this date. At number 6, we have perhaps the most controversial entry on our list, Better Off Dead.
Oops. So you're Al Myers' kid?
Yes, I am.
You look pretty stupid
Also
to me.
in 1985, this movie was once considered the most offensive piece of work by many critics. And let's be frank, you can hardly blame them. We mean this movie focuses on a young adolescent whose girlfriend breaks up with him, sending him spiraling with suicidal thoughts. And it doesn't stop there. Throughout the entire movie, dark humor is constantly dabbed around as John Cusack's character repeatedly fails in his suicide attempts. Eventually, he does find a new will to live when he meets a foreign exchange student, Monique.
Lane?
What?
What are you doing?
Nothing.
What makes this movie truly special is that it broke the mold of cautious humor that everyone was used to back then. Eccentric filmmaker Savage Steve Holland took the risk others weren't willing to take, and although he got whatever the 80s version of canceled is, Better Off Dead has grown to become a cult classic. Moving on, movie number 5 on our list is Just One of the Guys. Alongside Weird Science and Better Off Dead, this movie really took 1985 by storm. A somewhat loose adaptation of William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, this movie centers around young high schooler Terry Griffith, who, after losing a writing competition she was convinced she would have won if she was a guy, enrolls at a different school, disguised as one. On the surface, this movie was another of the mistaken identity comedy staples the 80s loved so much. But Joyce Heiser plays her role so perfectly it feels like the first of its kind. The movie turns out to be comedic, poetic, and help to address the issue of sexism, which wasn't as much of a topic at that time. Coming in at number 4 is John Hughes' 1984 gem, 16 Candles. Just so you know, this was Hughes' first attempt at making a high school movie, and it was just perfect. It features Molly Ringwald playing a 15-year-old Samantha who, while having a hard time deciding how to celebrate her sweet 16, gets her spotlight stolen by her sister's wedding preparations. Yeah, it doesn't sound like much, but this story develops into something more than just comedy. Instead, it helps to offer comfort to young adolescents finding it difficult to fit in and offers a nostalgia that'll make every viewer crave going back to high school, while simultaneously making you grateful those days are over. It's definitely a must-watch for everyone, regardless of how you feel about teen movies. And now, for the big 3, we have The Karate Kid. In this movie, Ralph Macchio plays Daniel LaRusso, a young boy who moves to Los Angeles, where he gets bullied by Johnny Lawrence, the top student at the Cobra Kai karate school. He then begins training with Pat Morita's handyman character, Mr. Miyagi, in the art of karate so as to be able to defend himself and prove he can win in an even fight. Sound familiar, right? Yeah, that's because the 2010 movie with the same title featuring Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan is an adaptation of this 1984 movie. The more recent Karate Kid was close to flawless, so that gives you an idea of how good the original must have been. Pat Morita even got an Oscar nomination for this movie, and it was one of the biggest commercial successes of the decade. At number 2, we have Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Another 80s movie was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress because of its cultural impact. Writer Cameron Crowe and director Amy Heckerling created something really special with this epic comedy about a young girl who ends up in the middle of a love triangle she never would have been in. Like most of us have experienced, she ends up in a dilemma all because she took the advice from her much more experienced friend. The cultural impact of this movie is just mind-blowing as it addresses everything from drug use to abortion. Its impressive cast includes Sean Penn, Judge Reinhold, Phoebe Cates, Brian Backer, and Robert Romanus, as well as future Hollywood stars like Jennifer Jason Leigh and Oscar winners Forrest Whitaker and Nicolas Cage. One watch and you'd agree this movie has it all. And now, atop our list of classic teen movies from the 1980s that defined a generation is The Breakfast Club. In case you hadn't figured it out, 1985 was the year of perfect movies, and this one was just the best. Yeah, it's comedic, but when John Hughes put together characters of an athlete, a genius, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal in the same room, it transcends comedy. These 5 characters couldn't be any more different, but ended up getting stuck together in a life-changing Saturday detention. This time together makes them realize they share more in common than they thought, giving it a deeper meaning than any teen movie from the decade, or even the decade before. Given how simple the setting was, this movie had a budget of just $1 million, but ended up grossing $51.5 million and has since been digitally remastered and rescreened in 400 theaters in celebration of its 30th anniversary. And yeah, it also got selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. Looking for a 5-star movie? This one for sure. Which of them have you seen, and what are your thoughts? What movies do you think that we should have included in this list? Let us know in the comments below, and enjoy all of our other videos.